One of the greatest issues invoked by the life of Lyndon Baines Johnson, the relationship between means and ends. No question is more important than that.
I love those books. I love those books.
Robert Caro's
Work goes so beyond empathy. There is healing in it and strength and power.
The Power Broker helped to shape how I think about politics.
He reminds us how power changes all of our lives. If we understand power, then maybe we can imagine a better future.
Bob Gottlieb is a superb editor.
The most important editor of the post-war period.
So about how many books have you edited?
Between 600 and 700.
Bob cared as much about the writing as I did.
Two guys the best in their field. Bob Caro, the greatest political writer of our time. Bob Gottlieb, the greatest editor of his time.
Robert Caro
is in his 80s, and everybody wants the story to be finished. He's running out of time.
He's industrious.
He would hate to think he was like me.
He does the work. I do the cleanup. Then we fight.
We will get this next book when he's damn well ready to give it to us, and not until then.
So that's what we got to date.
For them, words matter, mood matters, rhythm matters, commas matter, semicolons matter, and the fights go on.
Sometimes I'm looking for an adjective. I make a whole list.
But if he overuses them, it doesn't read well.
We've had some real fights about sections that he's wanted to cut out.
It was not that I was trying to tear his bleeding heart out of his chest.
They both want the best book possible. They both do. And they both want it for each other.
50 years, 5 books, 4,888 pages, and they're not finished yet.
A lot of angry things were said.
It was not because I didn't think it was valuable material.
But I just wasn't going to do that. Okay, we're ready to go.
Now that's a good ending, because I'm editing. Because that's what I do.
Okay, it's a whole new me.
Wait, where's the pup?
The puppy left my chair. Do you want my dog in the?
Well, no,
it's very cute.
But it is very cute, and it would not be the first dog, that's for sure, that has been on this podcast. Many dogs.
Very bright window. Tell me if it's better if I put the shade
No,
back.
it's fine. I have so much light in here. It's kind of I was getting a lot of glare from this window. See how my hand does it look like it's like disappearing into like
it's kind of magical. It's like a magical fairy realm over there. Yes, crazy.
How are you, Lizzie?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. It's nice to meet you.
It's so nice to meet you.
I don't have my library behind me, but I do have.
There they are. Books. Just a few.
I know. I'm like, I thought I had one more of the Johnson. Not that I've read them yet. I was waiting to retire. This was like retirement.
I'm glad you have the one with the red pages, because I feel like they stopped doing the red, that top of the book. Do you see?
Oh, well, not only that, I will show you one other thing.
Look at that.
Yeah. And I think this is a first edition.
Wow.
Yeah. This is
from 74?
Yes.
Amazing.
First edition book copy. Well, I mean, I was at a Barnes & Noble in Manhattan like 20 years ago. And I've always been, of course, a history buff, like many white men my age. Right. Yep. And so I know. And so, he was speaking there, and it was like, it was probably had a new one of the second to last, maybe the last one before the fourth volume. And, I went to no. And as a matter of fact, I saw him on a C-SPAN, they would play, right, author readings and stuff like that. Right. And so it was a series on, and I watched him, and I just got like this guy is one of the greatest speakers I've ever heard, And so when he was at this Barnes & Noble, I went, to buy the copy of the book, and I was able to bring the power broker. I guess had gotten, I don't remember the exact, so long ago, but he really was one of the great storytellers and like live speakers I've ever had the good fortune to see, you know.
Yeah,
So, and then of course I'm familiar with your father and you know, just the accomplishments and so when this documentary came around, I leapt at it, you know. So
and then did you like it?
I loved it. Yeah, sure. What it's so good because they're so difficult to like, you know, even with your connection to the story, you probably really struggled.
Yeah, it was really hard. It was really hard.
Uh-huh.
I mean, it was exciting and fun and fascinating. But to kind of first just get them to agree to do it.
Right.
And then once they did, you know, there's a lot of sort of push-pull. You know, Bob Caro is like, yes, you may film this. Actually, no, I don't think I want you in. You know, he doesn't owe me any story, right? But
sure.
I think at first he didn't really trust, he didn't know who I was or what my intentions were. So there was
he didn't know who you were.
Of course, he knew who I was.
Yeah.
But I think it took a while for him to feel that I had, you know, Kathy Horrigan in the movie talks about the two of them having the same noble goal and to make the best book possible. And I feel like Caro took a while to feel that he and I had the same noble goal in terms of how I was going to show him.
Mm-hmm. Well, it did turn out, just to answer your question, I mean, the film turned out really amazingly. And I mean, how do you feel? How do you feel about it? How do you think it turned out? Was this what you sort of had in mind, or did you?
It was kind of incredible. It sort of is what I had in mind, but I'm not sure I could have articulated to you like I had a very, very strong, more than an impulse, like a strong conviction that this would work in the face of many, many reasons why it shouldn't work, right? It's a film about two very old guys who spend their days alone in rooms thinking about word choice. Does not seem like
cinematic.
A bonanza, right? And it's a film about a relationship in which Bob Caro said, you can't film us in the same room as each other.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so that's crazy. I wanted to make a buddy film.
Did you? That was going to ask.
Yeah. And yet I couldn't see them together. So like there are a million reasons why this was a terrible idea that would never, never work. But I had I don't know what the right word is, like this burning conviction that it was a good idea and that it would work in the end. So the movie actually turned out to be really exactly what I hoped and dreamed it would be, though along the way I couldn't have articulated for you exactly what it was.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's contradictory. Yeah.
Yeah, because I was wondering, did you go into intending, well, you answered my question, which was going to be, the question was going to be, were you interested in more in this relationship, this friendship, this, you know, whatever you call it, or the process that these two guys have created over the decades, you know? And it's a bit of a both.
It's a bit of both. You know, I think that I think that people don't really know how books come to be, right? Unless you're a writer or
it's like
editor.
Movies. What does a producer do? Well, what does an editor do? What is
exactly? It's totally mysterious and vague to the outside world. And it's also, of course, very specific to each relationship. But I thought there's been this creative alchemy between these two guys that's secretive and hidden and mysterious and totally fascinating. And I thought if I can get in there and see that for myself and then bring people into that, I thought that could really mean something. And I also thought these guys are funny and fun and peculiar and eccentric and brilliant. And if I could bring people into that relationship, it would feel to me like an adventure. Do you know?
It would be a transcendent experience to watch it.
That's what I thought. And I thought maybe it's inspiring to all of us who try to make things to see how these guys have made things, you know, obviously separately and together, and how hopefully the books are better because of that than they were initially. So those were some of the kind of maybe inarticulate
I don't know,
things that were circling around in my head as I tried to make this
Well, normally I may ask this at the end because it's logical to ask this question at the end. Is of course what they thought of what your dad primarily thought of this, or what they both thought of this documentary.
Do you mean what they think of it now, or what they thought as I was going along?
No, after it's finished. Well, obviously your dad obviously is very proud, and he supports it because he's going to actually appear at the Film Forum with you on the 30th of December, the opening night.
He is, and Bob Caro is going to come to a different screening later in the week. I'm not sure.
Okay, of course he is.
But we've done a few events together, all three of us. We were at the 92nd Street Y a few nights ago, and we were at the New York Public Library
great.
last week. And they handled each other extremely well. They were gracious and supportive. But in terms of what they think of the film, I think they're both pleased. My father keeps saying he's very happy for me, not for himself, that for him it's about me.
Well, it is about you, the film, and I mean, in a way it is. It's like these two, this is like the biggest thing in a way, that represents your father, then probably, professionally. It's like the flagship event, whatever you want to call it. That's
I'm so sorry, my dog is sick.
Pick him up.
Okay, hold on one second. Wilkie, hush. Hush. Okay, there he is.
What's his name?
It's just Jacob.
Jay. What is it?
It's my son, Jacob.
Oh, yes. My son's name is Jake. My son's name is Jacob too.
Hey.
So we have that. And my dad's name is Bob, which is
really?
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Isn't that crazy? I wasn't going to tell you this really quick anecdote, but my mom married, Bob, and then I came around years later. But my aunt was married to a guy named Ivan, who turned out to be gay. So he found out pretty early, and so they divorced. And Ivan ended up with a longtime lover for the rest of his life named Bob. And then my aunt got remarried to a man named Bob. And so she called when this happened, she called my mother and she said, now we all have our Bobs. And you Lizzie have your Bobs. And what's your relationship with is it Caro? Is that the right way to say it? Caro.
I just want to say there's also Bob Moses. So they're all like Roberts flying around. It's hard to
except for thank goodness Johnson's first name was Lyndon,
Exactly.
But and Robert Moses, of course, the subject of the power broker. So what is he? Does he feel like, do you have an effect? I mean, obviously you have an affection for him. It shows in the documentary, but do you feel like, I mean, this is kind of awkward, but is he like an uncle, or does he feel like somebody he was always there, right? And
actually, weirdly, no. I say this a little bit in the film,
but
you
didn't meet him, right?
I grew up in this house. Like my father's writers were always there. They were dinner.
Not him. That's right. I remember that now.
Not Bob Caro. So it's a really new relationship for us.
I forget that.
I kind of wanted to include that in the movie, that feeling that what actually happened was that he was skeptical at first, or wary. And over the course of the 7 years that it took us to make this film, I think he started to trust me more. And I think we're now, I think we're friends. He's so extraordinary. And we talked on the phone last night, and he's very, very happy with the movie and very complimentary things. And, that's been very, very meaningful to me.
Yeah. Well, again, the name, I haven't said it yet. Turn Every Page. I will show the trailer ahead of time, or the audio of the podcast, but the video trailer. Everybody will understand what the film is about. It's called Turn Every Page: The Adventures, ironic subtitle, of Robert Caro and Robert Gottlieb. And again, it's opening on December 30th at Film Forum in New York City, and then it'll go wider in January, and I'm sure it'll go quite wide. I mean, it's a great subject for a documentary, and you got these two guys, and there's nothing like guys who've been around for so long, because they've just had such a incredible perspective, and know exactly who they are. It's great to see that, what was your, just on, I'm kind of curious growing up as you, in the environment in which you grew up, what was your relationship with books, Lizzie Gottlieb?
I'm a reader. Do you know, everybody in my family, we're all readers. My kids are readers. My husband's a reader. We're just sort of, I'm not as voracious a reader as my father, but we all, like my father, one of his maxims is never leave the house without a book. And
Yeah.
my kids, it's true. We're all, wherever we go, one of the activities we're always doing is reading. So that's always been true for us.
Always. And what is your do you have a preferred type of book? Do you read mostly nonfiction, or?
I read almost exclusively fiction.
You do?
And Robert Caro, but his books
Yes.
read like fiction. They're page turners. They're gripping.
I don't know, because I've yet to, like, you read The Power Broker, obviously.
Yeah, I read them all.
You did?
They're incredible.
Okay.
Once you start, seriously, the minute you
Okay.
start, you can't stop
All
because
right.
they're gripping, and you feel like you're learning why the world you live in is the way it is. And you're learning how you might contribute to making the world different than how it is. You have this feeling that you understand power in a way that you never did before.
Well, can you describe then, in a sense, I mean, where your father's fingerprints are on that book?
Well, I mean, I think the job of an editor is really to disappear, right? The job of if you could see the editor's fingerprints, they would not have been doing a good job, because
Okay.
your job
Yeah.
as an editor, I believe, he says it's a service job, and your job is to make the book a better version of what it was. So if you see the movie, you can see, they both describe sort of what that process is like, and learn something about it. I think it's not a process that people know about. But I think it would be inappropriate to say, oh, I did this or I did that on any particular book.
Mm-hmm. I understand. That's true. It is true. They both do talk about the role of author versus editor, right? But is there anything that you discovered, like, that maybe you didn't anticipate, or like going through this project?
In terms of
wide open there. I mean, I'm just like, it could be anything. I'm just wondering, like, if sort of, as like I often ask filmmakers, like, especially of documentaries, what perhaps really surprised them coming out of the process, if there is something, maybe.
So, I mean, so much was surprising and so much was inspiring as we went along. I mean, I think that to make a film about two guys who are so good at what they do and have been doing it for so long was a constant source of, aspiration to be like them, to try to, my father has this funny line in the movie where he says that Caro is industrious. And he says, that is a quality I honor and admire over any other. He says, anyone can be adorable, but not everyone can be industrious with results. And so we kept trying, my producers and I, my editors and I would say, we wanted to be both adorable and industrious as we made this film. And to not make the fastest film we could and not make the most, the obvious film, but to keep pushing and pushing until we sort of really got to the heart of the story we were trying to tell. I think that's something, you can't make a film about Robert Caro and not make it the best film you possibly can. And I had this incredible, profound moment at one point, because I don't think Bob Caro knew we were going to take 7 years. I thought he thought I would interview him twice, and 6 months later, there would be a movie. And at one point, years in, I said, Bob, I'm so sorry that this is taking so long for me to finish this film. And he said, Lizzie, he got very serious, and he closed his eyes for a long time, and he looked up at me and he said, it's not about how long it takes to make, it's about how long it will endure. So, oh, it felt like
that's a great answer right there.
the voice of God coming down to me and saying, do the best thing you possibly can and don't listen to anything else around you. Now, I mean, you might have to support yourself. You might have to figure out the rest of your life. But I was given this incredible privilege by the people I collaborated with to work on this film until it was the film we knew it needed to be. And that was incredible. And we had these two sort of men as inspirations to kind of guide us.
Yeah. Getting young folks to be inspired by these guys. I see that this film would, in addition to having its, theatrical, would be natural to be an educational, or, could be an educational, it could have educational distribution and be playing in school. I mean, because I think it's a great, what could be kind of furthest from teenagers or some, than seeing these two guys roughly 90, or pushing towards 90 years old, and yet be able to be inspired or relate to them. That would be a gift. I mean, I would love to see young folks see, because they're not probably going to come to the 92nd Street Y or the New York Public Libraries, necessarily. I may have been there, but, as a young guy.
There've been a handful of self-selected, young people who've seen it and seem to really, really respond to it. And I think
I would imagine,
when you say education, I'm like, oh gosh, but it's fun, but it's funny. It's not educational in a dry way, but I think that, I think they're inspiring also because I think what you see in them is this incredible joy in work. And for me, that's one of the themes of the film, is they love what they do, and they do it so well, and they love doing it together, even when they hate each other and even when they're fighting. That's one of the great joys of life. And I think that's inspiring for young people to see. It's inspiring for me to watch them that way. Somebody asked my father the other night about like the craft and being creative. And he was like, no, it's just work. You just do what you need to do.
Right.
But what I think you see in their faces and in their expressions in this film is total joy. So I hope that joy and industriousness also means something.
Isn't,
yeah.
And is infectious to those watching the film, which I'm sure it will be. It was for me. Sony Picture Classics is releasing Turn Every Page, The Adventures of Robert Caro and Robert Gottlieb, the Bobs, directed by Lizzie Gottlieb, opening at the Film Forum in New York City on the 30th of December, as I mentioned, and then and wider. It had its world premiere at the Tribeca. That's where I saw it. So I started rewatching last night. I'm like, I started panicking, like, oh my God, I'm going to forget. And sure enough, even still, I managed to, forget stuff. But it was really thoroughly watchable. Anybody interested in just writing and publishing and anything, of course, this will be right up their alley. But like you say, I think this is a great story about a friendship. And yeah, I think this would it's a great holiday film, right? And it's opening. What better way to spend New Year's weekend than to see this?
That's right. It's opening in New York and LA on the 30th.
In LA too. So do you know the theater in LA? I'm sure you do.
The Royal Lemley.
Okay. Yep.
And then it will open in cities across the country over January and February.
Right. Excellent. Well, congratulations. 7 years. It was worth it. It shows in your hard work.
Thank you so much.
All right. Nice meeting you.
So nice to meet you.
All right. Have a good holiday.
You too.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.